hard work, no play. Me and me, Jack, a dull boy.
Basic type of contracts that you're going to deal with in the construction industry. The first one is the original construction contract, which we're going to go through in just a moment in detail. The second one is called a home improvement contract. And the third one is a service and repair contract. These are the three basic type of contracts that you guys will be dealing with in the construction industry. And these are the kind of things that the state is going to want you to know about. All right, so the first one, your original construction contract, is basically pretty simple. As you'll notice here in these notes, there's a few things that makes it a legal binding contract, and here they are. The first thing here is it must contain the California State Licensing Board address on that contract. A lot of handyman will go and they will pick up an application or a, what is it called? One of those forms at Staples, what is it? Like not a contract, but a bid thing or stuff like that. And they'll go, okay, well this is just an estimate. So just sign this and this will be our contract. Actually, it's not a legal binding contract because a legal binding contract must contain California State Licensing Board's address on it. If you make up your own contracts and you don't have that address on there, it's not a legal binding contract. You must have that address on there. That way it informs your client, hey, if you need to know information about me, you can call the California State Licensing Board who governs all of construction for California, and you can get information about me, whether I'm licensed or not licensed, whether my insurance is valid or not valid, or whether I'm bonded or not. You can find that out right there because they'll track your number and they put it right there on their website. You'll forever be listed on their website in good standing or not good standing. Okay, so that's supposed to be on there. Another thing that's supposed to be on an original construction contract is the owner's name and address. So you have to have the owner's name and obviously their address. Now when it comes to your address as a business owner, just so you know, you can't use P.O. boxes. You have to have your physical address of where your business is. If it's in your home, it has to have your home business address on there as your home address. Okay, so make sure you recognize that and realize that. You have to have company name, address, and license number on that contract. Just a real quick thing to remember, that license number really needs to be on everything. Once you're issued that license number, you put it on every flyer. It has to be, it's required by law to be on the magnets on your car. It must be on every business card you hand out. Slap it on your kid's forehead, send them to school. You know, write it on your wife's foot. Whatever you got to do, make sure that license is everywhere. But basically, you want to get that on all the paperwork that you do. And that basically gives you the authority governed by the state of California, do construction in the state of California, okay? The other thing is it must contain a description of work to be accomplished. We'll deal with that a little bit more in detail. And also a payment schedule. Now there's two different types of work. Primarily there's your residential, and you set the payment schedule. Generally it's, I'm going to start the job this date, I want a deposit, and I need a payment, progressive payment on this date, and this date. And then they have to give you a payment on that date once they sign the contract. Doesn't matter how much of the work you got done. And then there's usually commercial does this kind of contract where it's paid by percentage, where, you know, percentage of work done, if you completed 20% of the work, then you get 20% of the money. If you completed 50% of the work, you get 50% of the money. But you can't get 50% of the money if you've only done 10% of the work. That's just the way a lot of commercial projects are done, anytime you do a mall or a hotel or things like that, okay? So that'll be determined by the kind of work you're doing. Also, not only does it have to have a payment schedule, but the approximate start dates and completion dates need to be on this original construction contract. And finally, it also lists and details the warranty for which you're given. Now, we're going to go over towards the end of this class what the state requires. Does the state require you longer than 1 year, even if you give them a 1-year warranty? Well, we'll find out later on, you know, what the answer is to that. So let's go ahead. Any questions on original construction contract before we go on to the next one? All right, good. The next contract is what's called your home improvement contract. Now, primarily, these contracts are used when you are doing any kind of work, obviously, in a home. This is residential stuff. It's a little bit more complex, it's a little bit more detailed. Usually it's about 6 or 7 pages long, and it will have not only the information that was listed on the original construction contract, but there's a few other things that you will have. One of those things is it will need to be preceded by a notice of mechanics lien rights. okay, which explains the California lien law. In other words, you are going to actually put in their hands, and they're going to check the box that you gave that to them and sign that you gave them this notification. What does that notification do? Good question. I'm glad you asked. What it does is it gives you the legal right to lien their home if they don't pay you. Now, if you do not give them this notice, and they don't pay you, you can't walk away and say, fine, I'm just going to lien your home, whatever. Guess what? You can't lien their home because you never gave them this at the signing of the contract. You will never be able to lien their home. You'll never be able to recoup that money unless you go to court, okay, and fight with lawyers. But make sure the balance is high enough, because usually a lawyer to retain is about $3,000 to $5,000. And if they only owe you $2,200, you're probably just going to walk away and not get your money, okay? There is another option, which we'll talk about later. It's called small claims court. So a home improvement contract is always preceded by a notice of mechanics, liens, rights. So these are things that you're going to have in your filing cabinet that you're going to give out every time you do and write a contract. The other thing that you're required to give out when doing a home improvement contract is an owner's 3-day right to cancel. Now, many of you, I'm sure you've went somewhere to purchase something and you had that really pushy salesman. Anybody do that? I've had that happen at a car dealership. Guy won't let me leave when I don't want the car. He's trying to throw every deal at me and trying to convince me I really need this car or this truck. Well, the thing with the state of California is they give the legal right that if we were pushy and we forced the sale, and then once we walk out of their house, that person goes, you know what, I just had a bad taste in my mouth. I didn't like this person. You know, I don't feel comfortable with this. They don't have to look at our ugly mug again, right? They just sign this piece of paper for which you provided by law. You have to provide it to them. Within 3 days of signing that contract, if they sign that piece of paper and get it in the mail, that contract is now null and void. And so they don't have to look at you, smell you, see you, hear you, call you, talk to you, or email you. Contract is null and void, you're done. If you collected a deposit at the signing of the contract, legally you have 10 days to get that deposit back into their hands. So you have to get that sent off to them. Okay? So that's what you have to provide for them. They are not expected to have that, you provide that.
And if you don't provide that?
If you don't provide it, well, then you'll get in trouble by the state board and they will nullify that. They can nullify the contract. There can be some legal problems. You can end up losing some money, you know, or even have a fine. So you're supposed to provide that, okay? So you provide that cancellation form, basically. That's what the next one is about. Now, there have been and there are situations where a person may call you up Saturday, right? They found out your name from a friend. They go, hey, we heard you do good work. I need this work done. Can you come in? Can you bring it in? Come bid it now. So you go over there Saturday, you bid it. They're like, look, we want you to get started Monday. Will you write an application or, a contract and get it to us? Can you bring it tonight? Like, all right, we'll do it. What you want to do then is you bring a waiver to that cancellation form, okay? That waiver form says, I waive my rights to cancel this contract in 3 days. I'm signing this now. They sign it there in your presence. You keep that for your own sake. Now they've waived their rights because from Saturday to Monday is not 3 days. Okay, so now you can legitimately and legally start that job on Monday. But keep in mind, whether they sign that or that 3 days is up, once that moment happens, you guys are in a legal binding contract. Guess what? You can't get out without their permission. You can't go like this and go, oh man, I misbid this job. I'm gonna lose $2,500. Yeah, forget it. I'm just gonna call them up, tell them I can't do it. Guess what? You legally cannot get out of that contract. You are legally bound to that contract to do that. The only way you can get out is by bankruptcy, or they allow you out. But it's the same for them. Guess what? If they find someone better after this 3-day right has went by, or they've signed the waiver, 5 days later they call you up and say, you know what, man, I found someone who'll do it $500 cheaper. I want out of this contract. You can say, I'm sorry. They have no legal recourse. They have to let you do the contract. By law, they cannot get out of it. Any questions?
Is that a separate contract than your bid? I mean, having them sign your bid sheet doesn't bind them to those same obligations as a, you're talking about just a contract. It doesn't even necessarily talk about the work. It references the bid sheet in the contract.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. A lot of
It's a separate
times,
contract.
what I do, and which helps out, is once you fill out your bid sheet, you send it off, they like the proposal, They go, yeah, let's do it. You may run over there, they'll initial it. And then you go, okay, I'm gonna go ahead and start writing up the contract.
Right.
I write up the contract, and for my description in the contract, instead of rewriting all that again, I just slip that bit in there as an addendum. And then I attach it. Once it's attached, it's a part of the contract. Okay? So they've initialed the bid, they know exactly what's going on, now it's a part of the contract, they sign all the components necessary for a legal binding contract. You see, as a licensed contractor, that's the benefit you have. Not only are clients protected from bad contractors, I don't know if you've been seeing around here, but there have been several contractors who, and we just had a person who did this to a person who contacted me, and they said, do you know anybody that can come do this work for me at my house? I actually paid this guy a couple $1,000s, he never came back. I go, was he a licensed contractor? I don't know, I never looked. He came in, he talked smooth, everything was nice, and I can't find him. You know, he's gone. He collected a couple $1,000, poof. So the state's been looking for this guy. But that happens. So in order to protect clients, you know, there's a few legalities that we work through to protect them. But also, believe it or not, we're protected too. Because a client can't go, and this has happened, believe me, they'll have you finish up all the work, and if you're not a licensed contractor, and say they have an outstanding balance of $5,000, they can say, see you later, man, I'm not paying you jack. You can say, well, you know what, we're under a legal contract, and you have to pay me. And then you can either lien the home, you go to small claims court, or you can get a lawyer and go to court. Now, the thing I do like about small claims court that we will talk about, this is one of those things I'm just going to kind of give you now, but we'll end up talking about a little bit more in detail, is that small claims court costs about $75, and you can sue someone for up to $10,000. So if they owe you less than $10,000, you're golden. You can get a court appearance, you know, within a month or two, and if you plan it right, you may be able to make some money by going on television. And those are legal binding as well. And so, you know, those are options for you. Okay? Another thing here is you do have to disclose on this home improvement contract whether you do or do not have general liability insurance. Now, I gave you my agent's number there. He's an incredible guy. Check him out. Give him a call. Let him just throw some numbers at you. But general liability insurance is good because if you damage something in that house, insurance will protect you. Trust me, it's a good thing to have. Just so you know, insurance is about, for a $2 million insurance policy to protect you, is about $900. Anything less, you won't want to get, and I'll explain it to you why later. But you'll want to, just so you know, that's a good price. The other thing that you will have to disclose is this, whether you have workers' compensation or not. Now that's important because if you disclose, if you tell them, look, I don't have workers' compensation, it's only going to be me. I'm not showing up on this job site with anybody else. You have to let them know if you have that or not. You can tell them, I don't have workers' compensation, but I'm going to bring a couple employees. You can tell them that. They may or may not hire you, you know, because technically, if your worker gets hurt and they're home, your worker not only gets the legal right to sue the homeowner for everything they own, but they get to sue you for everything you own because you don't have workers' comp. And that's happened. There's a gentleman who works for a large real estate agency here in the community, and his son is my neighbor, and he had been picking up a bunch of guys off the streets to come do some work to refab these homes because he would go in and take control of these homes, right? And they're missing countertops, they're missing electrical, because you remember during the big, huge foreclosure market, everybody's ripping things out of their homes and taking off, and then people had to go in and refurbish them and fix them up and get them back ready so they can either be rented or sold. So this guy went and picked up a bunch of people to keep his labor costs down. Well, one of these guys was actually an illegal. He went in there, he was up on a ladder, fell on the ladder, and so the guy broke his leg. Not only did the state mandate that he pay for all his medical expenses here in California, get his leg mended, everything done, whatever he had to get done, cast, everything, but they also mandated that he give this illegal $40,000 to cover anything for the future, and the illegal didn't get deported. So even if he's an illegal that you pick up off the streets and he gets hurt in that home, that illegal gets to sue you for bringing him in. So be careful. You have to disclose whether you have workers' compensation or not. Okay, that's important. All right, any questions so far?